One of the reasons, one of the many, many reasons that I'm glad to hear is not just because we're going to be talking about recruiting, of which I think you are able to provide the great perspective because of how close you've been to recruiting for so long in terms of us trying to find the best year or the best cycle, but also because we're starting to get a little bit of conversation from athletic directors, from even head coaches. Georgia's Kirby Smart coming out at a media availability recently, talking about, how college sports is going to change forever. Like when this new House settlement goes through, set for April 7th. So I guess what I'm looking for here, Bud, is what is your expectation? Is it really going to be like settlement goes through and then things take off? Is there going to be more litigation? Do you think we're going to get this thing pushed? I'm getting a lot of doomsday. We got the big article right now on ESPN from Dan Wetzel and Pete Thamel with lots of comments from coaches and athletic directors. I'm getting mixed messages in terms of, yes, the House settlement date is going to turn us into a new era. And then also a lot of it's not like you're just going to wake up and everything's going to be different. How do you see this in terms of what fans and what we can all expect from the way college sports is going to change with the House settlement?
So if you are somebody who has watched Cover 3 for a while, or you consume a lot of college football podcasts in the offseason, you're probably like the top 2 or 3% of college ball fans, right? In terms of your knowledge. So if you're somebody listening to this right now, I don't think any of these changes are going to surprise you because we've been talking about this for like a good year. You guys remember the Simpsons episode where like they send like pamphlets and they send you to area code camp and like all like they give you like calls and letters and all this stuff, and then Homer can't figure out how to use the new area code. He's like, no notice, right? And then Lenny's like, what about the 3 weeks you spent at the new area code camp stuff? So I don't think you're going to notice a whole lot, but I think Kirby may be speaking to a broader audience that doesn't follow it hard in the off season, right? And just more of a casual audience out there. And for them, it will be a little bit different with the increased roster sizes, maybe some sports going away, et cetera. But all the big schools that you guys root for, they've already been operating like an anticipatory manner as to what's to come. Nobody here is being caught flat-footed by what is coming in house. They literally negotiated the settlement. They know what to expect.
Do you think that schools aren't going to start cutting sports on April 10th? Like, we're not going to see. I mean, does this impact the spring portal? I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, is it going to be something where all of a sudden floodgates, dominoes start falling? I don't. That's where I'm worried that I have been a little bit too casual about this. Is everybody else being a little bit more panic driven?
That is so consistent with like the general ethos of this sport. Everybody in power is always like, oh no, change, like change is bad, et cetera. And they all like they doomsday scenario everything constantly. I think Kirshner actually, back when we were at SB Nation, did a really good article on all the times that like major figures in college football said that college football is going to die if this change goes through. And they were like literally hundreds, like one a year, different issues going back to like the turn
Teddy
of the last
Roosevelt.
century.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like if you add helmets, this will kill the sport. If you add the forward pass, this will kill the sport. If you give these kids scholarships, it'll kill. Like there were so many things. So I don't think that it's going to be a major change, but it's one that I think our audience has been pretty prepped on.
Yeah, I would think that like a lot of these schools, while sky is falling is a natural reaction for a lot of people. I think that like us, nobody genuinely truly knows anything that's going to happen for sure. Like I think most of these schools are going to see what the changes are, and then they're going to see how it impacts them. And then based on how it's impacting them, then they might make decisions further down the road. Like you were saying, will we see schools shutter programs on April 10th? I doubt it. I think it would probably be, I don't know, just guessing here, 6 to 12 months before you start seeing schools make those kind of decisions.
Danny, do you feel like you've got your head wrapped around this?
No, not at all.
I'm not on the front foot or the forefront of this at all.
And as the father of 3 daughters who would love to play college athletics, I'm very curious how it impacts,
women's
sports like volleyball, swimming, soccer, non-revenue sports. What impact does it have on them? I feel like Bud is right, though. The big schools, I think, will be fine. But I do wonder, like the lower tier, the group of 5 schools, the mid majors that have to have football to survive, and that's their moneymaker. And they, how do they do? That's a question for me. The other thing that I am still very curious, because if you do the math on the 20.5 million and you divvy up the way Georgia had said, 75% is going to go to football and 15% is going to go to men's basketball. And like they have their structure that they kind of released a couple months ago. There's no way they're only paying that much. So they're going to have over the cap money for NIL, which is specific to, okay, let's say it's, Carson Beck, who was there. If he can get a Lambo from a Lambo dealership because he's Carson Beck, the starting quarterback, then they can't prevent that. But I do think there's going to be businesses, local businesses, that will say, sure, I'll put your quarterback on a billboard for $1 million. And then how are they going to legislate that and say, well, there's the market. What is the common market? Because they're not supposed to go over the market value of a player. Who determines that market value? Because I have been told up and down that this new enforcement wing that's going to be this new position, the CEO, and there's an enforcement arm, not the NCAA, but somebody with actual teeth, is going to enforce these to make sure there's not extra pay for play. But it's so convoluted. How do you determine somebody's market value? It is whatever somebody's willing to pay.
But your revenue sharing payments are not subject to market value analysis, right?
They're not subject to market analysis, but there's a cap on how much you can give to them.
Right.
So the amount, I think for Georgia was $13.5 million that they're going to use out of the 20. I think it's either 13 or 15.
Right.
That's still well short of what everyone reported on Ohio State paying $20 million and Texas paying $22 million. So you're telling me that Georgia's going to say like, yep, we're only going to pay our guys between 13 and 15 million as a team?
So you rev share the third stringers and then you take all your starters and you trot them out into the NIL market to be able to make the numbers work?
No.
Okay.
So look, first of all, there's no market analysis needed for rev share.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The rev share stuff is not subject to any of that. So how would you decide the way that you're going to go about having the NIL for some, rev share for others? Or is it just rev share is across the board for your roster and then you just let the NIL opportunities come in over top to make those numbers work?
It's definitely not even across the board. Right. Like your players, like the bottom half of your roster is largely expendable. Like they don't matter. They will not make an impact on your program in the aggregate. A couple of them will pop, but you're no better at telling me who those guys are going to be, like in their first couple of weeks than anybody else is. Right. I'm not saying I'm better, but it's just a numbers game. Like a couple of them are going to pop. Most of them will not. Those guys aren't going to get very much money. Like bottom half of the roster, I mean, in terms of value. Obviously, some guys who don't play year one do have a lot of long-term value. You need to invest in that so you can capture that upside in year 2 and in year 3. So you top load it with your rev share of the top guys, and then you also go out and try to get those guys a bunch more through your NIL programs so they stay on your roster. They'll transfer.
But that's where I'm curious, is that NIL, like collectives. I've heard there shouldn't be a reason for collectives. It should just be marketing. Like it should just be a marketing agent that goes out and gets you brand deals with Gatorade and some of the commercial Dr. Pepper, like the ones we've watched. But college football and cheating go hand in hand. I don't think anybody's going to just say, sure, we'll play by the rules. There's going to be teams that push the envelope and challenge. Who are you to say that my quarterback couldn't make this amount of money? And there is definitely, like when I played for the Giants, you are more marketable on the New York Giants, New York Jets than you are playing in, Minnesota for the Vikings or Seattle. And I think Cooper Flagg playing at Duke helps him way more than if he played at Boston College. There's a brand value of wearing a certain jersey. So I get that, and you can get some more value, but I just feel like teams are going to push that envelope, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they enforce that.
Well, this is where I think the lawsuits will come.
Mm.
I think people will challenge this clearinghouse and say, wait a second,
Totally.
really? Like it's pretty anti-American to say that this independent business can't value my endorsement of them at X, right? Like what if they want to get in on the ground floor because they feel like your influence is going to grow quite a bit,
Right.
Like that's somebody's going to challenge that. We will see how well this holds up.
There's also, don't you think there's got to be some, and this is why teams are rushing, right, to get these deals done so they can go above and pay a little above and beyond before the salary cap comes in. There's probably right now, there's a 14-year-old quarterback who is out there and he's a stud and he's a future 5-star. And when he comes out, he's going to have his earnings capped. He's going to say, well, wait a second, Bryce Underwood made $12 million or whatever his deal was.
Mm-hmm.
Why can I only make 4 or 5, whatever his number is, but they're going to have a cap on it to make sure they can get him in. The 10-year agreement, I don't think is going to last longer than 2 or 3. And then we're in more lawsuits and it's just going to be a lot more legalese that we're going to have to cover.
I could see that.
How will the tariffs impact it?
Let's drive up the YouTube algorithm.
Euros. If there's in the college basketball, there are a lot of kids that come up from Europe. They're going to have to
Canada too.
Yeah, that's right. Canada. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to put a little tariff on them.
Sorry, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
We want American-made players.
Like 24/7 is going to take a 5-star Canadian and knock him down to a 4. Sorry, 20% tariff.
Is this going to, oh, great question from the tailgate. Is this going to impact our Aussie punters?
Oh, wow.
No. Australian punters have changed the game. I mean, we can't lose our Aussie punters.
We need to move punting manufacturers back to the United States, damn it.
Yeah, as you can hear, like with this conversation, there's just, even from those of us who eat, sleep, and breathe this sport, there's still a little bit of like, okay. And the coaches, the athletic directors, the administrators, there's a lot of confusion. April 7th, we'll see. I mean, who knows? Is there any chance that it gets delayed again? Or we just have lawsuits immediately filed and then everything freezes? I mean, this thing could feel like the ACC versus Florida State, just getting like tied up in the courts for so long that you just kind of lose sight of even what we're talking about here.
I guess it could, but I don't know. Like I'm not going to say like it will, because I really don't know if it will.
The schools are all hoping and praying this lasts, but I just think there's too many attorneys out there that see too much opportunity and too much restriction on a workforce that hasn't been collectively bargained.
Right.
Well, again, April.
This is still a great deal for the schools.
Yes.
The reason why the schools want this pass is like relative to their actual value, the players are getting ripped off far less than they used to be, for sure. But like, the schools are still making out like bandits here.
Right. We will see next week is when this settlement is supposed to go through. We will continue to follow that as the ripple effects go through college sports.